Hello again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Welcome to the No More Noise podcast, shining the light and silencing distraction. I am so glad you joined us. I know I'm always glad you joined us. We've got a great show for you today with Justin Boyum, founder of Charge Forward. I am so stoked to have Justin share his story. Justin and I are committed to helping entrepreneurs experience 5, 6, or even 7-figure days in their businesses using virtual events. That's right, crazy, right? But that's not what drives us. Justin and Charge Forward are helping people dream fearlessly, conquer obstacles, and become victorious. Amazing stuff coming from this guy. You won't want to miss it. Starting in just over a minute. We'll see you there. Have you ever felt like you wanted to give up? Have you found yourself at a crossroad, walking through chaos, failure, disappointment, contemplating the loss of your dream and wondering where the fire that once burned inside your heart has gone? Have you traded your happiness and joy for a life of going through the motions or questioned your very existence? If that's you, don't go anywhere. This is No More Noise, a show dedicated to encouragement, hope, and inspiration. I'm your host, Dale Antrim, and I am on a heartfelt mission to help others overcome the noise that keeps them from living their best life. So stay with us as we unravel mindsets, shatter perceptions, and rise above discouragement. Together, we'll discover actionable steps, strategies, and resources to silence distractions, amplify achievements, awaken the dormant dreams within you, and unleash your impact on the world. I'm glad you're here. So let's turn down the noise, turn up the possibility, and dive into the extraordinary. This is No More Noise. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to our show. This is episode number 3 of No More Noise, and we are so excited that you have chosen to join us today. Wherever you are, morning, noon, evening, night, it doesn't matter. We're just excited to inspire and encourage. Remember, No More Noise is about silencing distraction and really amplifying, your success, really educating you and getting your mindset right so that you can multiply your message to the people that need to hear your unique voice. So welcome to our show. Again, if you are joining us, this is our 3rd episode. Last week, you can tune in. You can listen to Gina Bermudo, and she's a Filipina who is very passionate about autism awareness and as an autism advocate. And she has an international certification program that she works with to help teachers and parents work with disability children, right? It's really amazing. And I love how she says there is no, they're not different. They're normal. That's their normal. And as a parent, she has 2 children who were very small, and she found out they had autism and grew up. And so she's worked through that. And then Krista Piper, episode number 1, Faithful Fitness. Guys, if you want to get your life in balance on the pillars of physically fit, mentally fit, spiritually, emotionally fit, you want to listen to that episode and kind of hear that message. Tonight's guest, however, is really a special dude. I'm so excited to have him with me. His name is Justin Boyum, and they call him Jay, right? That's what we call you. We call you Jay. Is that right?
That's right. You can call me Jay, call me Justin. Yeah, just don't call me late for dinner. You know what I mean?
Don't call you late for dinner. Well, we're so excited to have you with us. As I shared with the audience in last week's episode, as I was teasing today, I basically told him a little bit about your company, Charge Forward. And tell us a little bit, just real briefly, and then we'll talk a little bit more about you. But tell us a little bit about Charge Forward and what brings you here today.
That's a great question. And first, can I say just thanks for sharing your stage with me. And Dale, it's amazing. I know we've known each other for a little bit, but watching you and growing your business and what you're doing with this podcast and getting your message and sharing your story and putting your hand out there, your arm or whatever it is, the olive branch out there for people to know that there's someone like you that is committed to helping people be their best selves and get the most out of life. And it's amazing. I just love seeing what you're doing. So thanks for bringing me to your stage, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that's so cool is I love like-mindedness, right? And those of you who don't know, Justin and I actually do some work together. But we just want to see people's lives change. That's really what it's all about. And we believe that everyone has that seed within them to do something great and we want to help you get there, right? So that's what Charge Forward's all about. Is about. I likened it. I was talking with Justin the other day, and it's like kind of being on that. I was visualizing a runner getting ready for the race. They're getting down and they're squatting down, and the dust is kind of rising off the field, and they're getting ready, and we're waiting for that gunshot to go off. They prepared. Everything they did has prepared them for that moment, that when the gunshot goes off, they ignite, they leap, they charge forward. And that's the exciting part of this. So
I think at the end of the day, the idea of charge forward comes from a couple of places, but number one, for those of people who know me, and Dale knows me, I had a military background. I was active duty military for a few years, and really loved the values that came with being in the United States military. I was in the Army, and it was not something that I really necessarily thought that I was going to be like all gung ho military. When I was growing up, I never really thought like, oh, I'm going to be in the Army and I'm going to go do cool things. And it was really just a path that I had taken that would help, pay for me to get an education, which is fine. But while I was there, I really developed much more into my own person. And a lot of that came from the values that they instill in you as a leader there. And I loved that. And getting out of the military and going into what other military members would call like the private sector, and finding that is a completely different value set. And it was really something that I struggled with for very many years. And so the idea of Charge Forward was being able to move forward with with that value set and doing something much more meaningful for you, but also is exactly what it says, like being able to take that action forward. And one of my mentors, and somebody that I was introduced to, many of you will have heard of now, he's a much bigger name these days, Brendan Burchard, and he wrote this book called The Charge. And so it kind of the word kind of worked for me. I really liked the idea of like, if you're going to go like on an offensive operation in the military, you like old school fixed bayonets, charge, right? And you just got to get moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of why I went with Charge Forward. It just really stuck with me. And the idea is to get you moving forward. Lots of people, you're just like me, where I was stuck in some cubicle somewhere, just doing life, going through the motions. And I really needed to get into that action of doing something that was really much more meaningful. And not that being in a cubicle can't be meaningful. It absolutely can be. But for me, it was not. And I needed to get out of that. And luckily, I'd met some awesome people who were very similar to you, Dale, who knocked me out of that. And I saw opportunity and I went for it. And so thus became Charge Forward. And now I'm helping other people do that in their own ways.
It's such an amazing story there. And we'll get more into the business side of that and what you're doing and why you're doing it. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about you as a person, kind of where you've come from in your life and what brought you to this point. Because you use the key word here that I think resonates with even my listeners, right? And the people that the audience, even your listeners, right? People are stuck or they feel stuck. And I'm not talking about just career. I'm not talking about just life. I'm talking about in all areas. Like they have a dream on the inside of them and they kind of, if you're like me, I got married young. I had children young. You get through that, you start having life and life happens. And next thing you know, 20 years have gone by. And the things that you used to dream about have kind of grown dim, right? And so as you came through this, that brought you to the point of wanting to inspire others, brought you to the point of wanting to launch this company called Charge Forward and really to impact lives. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Like what inspired you and what moved you out of that stuck place? But before we get there, talk about you tell us a little bit about you, your family.
Well, that's a lot of things to go through. But if I want to go back to kind of the beginning, I'm raised in Texas. I was actually born in a military installation in Georgia. So my wife likes to give me a hard time for not being a true Texan, even though I don't remember anything before living in Texas. But we moved here at a young age.
Texas sears you. Once you're Texas, everything's Texas. I knew a pastor who
Texas.
A year and a half later, he had his old license plate on his car because it said Texas. I was like, okay.
Well, all the major metros here are huge, right? If you look at the metroplexes of like Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston, San Antonio and Austin, they're all like on the top, largest cities in the country because everybody's moving here because it's amazing. I don't blame them for moving here, right? We'll take all the imports we can get. Just don't, just remember, you're going to assimilate to what Texas is all about. And I'm sure that's what they're doing because they're coming here because it's awesome. And so I don't blame that. But technically, apparently the rule is that unless you were born here and raised here, you can't be a true Texan. But I'm as Texas as they get, as much as you can without being a country bumpkin. I'm much more of a city slicker, but I love Texas and everything it's about, which is why we came back here after I was in the military. But I digress.
Right.
I was technically a military brat when I was a toddler, but I don't remember any of that. But come from a 2-parent household, Christian family, three brothers and sisters, the nuclear family, just like the typical, American dream, right? Like, literally like King of the Hill might've been my life, except for the fact that my dad worked for a tech company. And so it's just that, right? Like that was the growing up. That's what I'm used to. Honestly, we really didn't, like, if I'm being honest, like I don't have like this sad, like come from nothing story. Right. Where it's not even necessarily sad. Like I'm not going to have that kind of inspirational story. We had what we needed, right? It's not like we were super rich. It wasn't like a silver spoon, but we didn't really necessarily want for anything. Well fed, had great opportunities, went to great schools. The whole 9 yard of what you would see on like, a Disney Channel special, right? Like just that kind of life. It's time. But with that, I think things almost might have come a little bit too easy for me. I typically did well in school without really applying myself. And kind of just took the paths that were put in front of me. Like I just said, I never really expected to go in the military. But as most people are want to do, like you expect, like after high school, you go to college. And so I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready for college, but it's like, I don't really know what I want to do. I had some ideas that maybe I would be a physical therapist because I was really into sports. So I thought sports medicine would be cool. I'm not very good at like chemistry and things like that. So it really wasn't a good fit. But anyway, that's what I thought I would do. And then they're like, oh, but by the way, you have to pay for college. And that was not something that I had the money for or my family. Like we did well, but we didn't have the money to put 4 kids through college. And so, I got an opportunity to interview for an ROTC scholarship, and the rest is rock and roll history. I got that and joined the military as an officer, and really kind of honed in on the idea. I'm really more of a numbers person. So getting to do more of like the logistics side of the military, which if you know anything about the Army, it's like the biggest logistical operation really in the world, at least the most efficient one. And so I learned a lot of great things. And so it wasn't really until I left the military and I left a lot of the structures that I had that I really had my moment of figuring out, oh, I'm stuck, right? Everything else kind of just happened. And then I found myself at the crossroads when we were actually having, my wife and I were having our first child. I was sitting there like, oh, now I got to really kind of figure these things out and what's going on. And
I think it's a wake up call for everyone who's listening to
as it is, right? But in my world, it was like, we only did that and we made some decisions, hindsight's 2020, but now we're all of a sudden, we don't have that structure system, and we were doing fine. But I found myself sitting in a cubicle going like, I don't even want this. I don't care about this product that I'm pushing. Like I don't see a path forward to real career bliss. I don't see the ability to provide an even better life for my kids than my family was able to provide for me. And I honestly just didn't care about the things that I was doing. And so I was really not really delivering the value that, if you and I are both believers here, that I had this opportunity that God has given you, but I wasn't really doing anything with it. And it really started to hit me for the few years I was out of the military. I was bouncing around from company to company and not knowing what I should be doing. And I'd be like, oh, this is good. And then that wouldn't work. And I'd go somewhere else. And it was always this constant battle. And it never really was, making good money or doing things that I really enjoyed. It was just the thing to go do. And, but one day, something kind of shocked me out of that, and we can go into more detail if you want, but that's kind of like the lead up to where what became now, is Charge Forward, was, I had a good life, but it was just kind of all things just kind of happened. And it really took me, once I kind of got a little bit later in life, well, not really that late in life. I was like, I don't know, 27, 28 years old. But that was when really things started to change for me. If that kind of gives you a shed of light into where does Justin or Jay come from?
No, it's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And so what was there any moment that in that part of your journey where you were like, where the switch turned on and Charge Forward was born, or was it was it a process that was kind of building in your heart for a time or a season?
Yeah, I was in a corporate, and by the way, when I talk about corporate America, I tend to sometimes sound like I'm dogging on it, and I really don't. Like, I think there's lots of amazing things and lots of amazing people in corporate America that are doing just incredible work, and it can be very fulfilling. But for me, it really wasn't. I was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years out of the military. One kid and another on the way, and just going like, this is this really it? This is going to be the life? I'm just going to go to work and do sales calls, or all this, or I don't know what I was working towards, and it was really not there. And I got an opportunity. I was invited to go to a live event, which we can talk about later, but it was a live in person, like professional development seminar that was like a multi-day experience, right? It was like 4 days. And so I was an extra ticket. I was invited to go, and it was really kind of like, I don't know if have you ever been to a 4-day personal development, workshop or seminar, right? Or whatever. And I go in there, and it was from Brendan Burchard, and who's now known as kind of like one of the world's leading like high performance coaches. People are bouncing up around and doing things just as being explained. It's just, for me, that's just like, it's not naturally who I am. I'm much more of a stoic kind of person. And I'm like, I tend to be very skeptical and think lots of things are silly, and that's not my jam. But by day 2 or 3, I'm in it too, right? I'm going, I can get the energy's going through you. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to the concepts that Brendan's teaching and the other speakers that he has there, and they're talking about how to be organized and how to be productive and how to set goals, and and how to put those things into your life. And people were there from all different walks of life. Some people were entrepreneurs, some people were in corporate, some people were just doing it for their family, right, or whatever. And I'm sitting there going like, man, he's teaching things that I already know, right? I learned this stuff as a military officer, right? This all makes total sense. And what clicked for me in that, and the only way I know to describe it, was, have you seen the movie Moneyball, right? The baseball movie, right?
I haven't seen that.
Okay. It's a phenomenal film. It's really fantastic. I know that, as with anything, they take a little bit of liberties, but it's about, it's with stars Brad Pitt, and it's about a general manager of a professional baseball team. And for those of you who haven't seen it, spoiler alert, right? But go see it anyway, because it's really fantastic. But he's the general manager of the Oakland A's baseball team, which is in Oakland. And apparently in the sport of baseball, the ownership gets to control how much money they spend on players. There's not like a salary cap where every team has the same kind of pot of money to use on players. And so he had the lowest one, and he had to constantly compete with the Yankees, who spent like 4 times the budget for their players. Right. And if you know anything about professional players, they like to make a lot of money because they put butts in seats. And so he would build up a team, and he'd get somebody good, and then they'd maybe do a little bit of success. And right when they're kind of they have that chance to really make it, like, all the players would leave and go sign with the Yankees or the Red Sox or somebody else. And so the idea of the movie was like, how do you compete in that market? And he was like, I can't play like the Yankees, right? I can't play like them because I don't have those kinds of resources. So how can I? You
know what I think is fascinating about this? I think that almost has a life parallel, as you're talking about, right? You're talking about that. I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's like right when they're just near that success, or they feel like they're about to do something happens, and it just knocks them down again, and they just feel like they can't get up or can't move forward. Is that kind of where you were at?
I think that for me, it was really just more of the aha of seeing how Billy Bean, who's the character that Brad Pitt plays in this movie, and as I was in this seminar with Brendan Burchard and all these other speakers talking about these things and learning more about professional development, was that the core aspect of why Billy Bean was able to be successful with like a quarter of the budget of a team like the Yankees was that he got really good at systematizing and understanding where do wins really come from, and doing those little things that will make you successful without necessarily all the big huzzah that like home run hitters can give you, right? And I think that was the thing that really resonated with me, and that's what Brendan's message was. And then he had an opportunity where I could go and really learn how to do that in a way that was really much more business centric. And just like everybody else, you get into coaching, and then you're like, this is amazing, I want to do this too. That's kind of what it was for me. And I was like, oh man, if I had had this before I left the military, things would have been completely different. And so I was like, I can take this mentality and this idea of putting in little systems that allow people to win incrementally each and every day. They're going to be much more successful. And my initial goal was to take this to the military community and help them before they got out of the active duty military and go and find out what do they really want to do when they grow up, and what were the steps that they'd have to take to actually go and be successful. So you don't have to be like me and spend 5 years at 4 different companies trying to just figure it out. Right. And that was kind of where the break, I was like, oh my gosh, I can take this to people and they need to know it. And that's where kind of the mission in me was really came out. That's when I started to dream again of what I could do, what I could help people with, and then also use that as a way of a business to take care of my family as well. It was just like that's where it's at for me. And that's
I think the beauty of what you're saying is that you went through a challenging period in your life where you were trying to find direction. And we've all been there, and we've all been asking, what do I do? Where do I go? And what you found yourself in was an event where it gave you the idea of systems and how systems can deliver you and give you a process or a pathway to a different future, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing, and then so as you were working through that, what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome in your thinking as you were making that switch, in that event? You said you weren't real emotional. I mean, I'm sure it was pretty crazy. You see people bouncing around and you see stuff that really attracts you, but you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be all foo-foo about that. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, and like this is different for different people. I don't know if it's just a personality thing or if maybe it's just something from my experience in the military where and as an officer in the military, just to break this down for people, like they beat into the idea that everybody's watching you all the time. And so they're looking for you to make mistakes. And so I got really good at making sure that I was presenting myself in a certain way. And so I think part of that instilled in me, like I wouldn't let myself kind of break down certain barriers. And even still to this day, like that's kind of my natural state anyway. It really wasn't something that I really had to work hard at, but like the fear of like, oh my gosh, like what if somebody sees me doing something wrong, right? Or doing something that's not me, like really kind of held me back from really going and doing the things that really were meant for me. Again, I was in corporate America because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. I went to college because that's what I was supposed to do. Right. And, there's nothing wrong with some of those things, but I was doing it not for me. I was doing it for somebody else's idea of what success looked like. And so the real barrier breakdown, and I could talk about a lot of different things. I could talk about, you say like direction. I might use a word like clarity of like understanding what you really want and why it matters and what you're going to use to get there. I could talk about systems and routines. I could talk, honestly, the biggest linchpin for me in all of this and why I love bringing this message through Charge Forward is literally courage. And it's the word courage. And I sit on it a lot because most of us are unwilling to get uncomfortable. Like I know I was unwilling to do something that I might make a mistake in, right? Or being seen that way.
Interesting.
And so I would keep myself from going for certain things, but then I would sit there in emotions, just faking like I'm like, it's literally like Office Space, like literally like, oh, I'm just in my emails doing my things, but I'm not really working, because I didn't care. And because I didn't have the courage to go and do what would really matter, what would really allow me to leverage my best self and what my best value was. And I did get other opportunities along the way while I was learning that. I was able to parlay learning that and going and taking over a small business as their kind of pseudo general manager without the title, which allowed me to use a lot of my experiences leading up to that point and kind of cultivate that to build this little small business. We were absolutely crushing it. I helped this business double and triple over the first couple of years I was there, and doing some different things. And it was just amazing. And I was like, okay, like I've got to take this and start doing more of these things. And then, I just literally went and had a conversation, just started coaching people. I just was like, I'm going to be a coach. I don't know what that means or how to really market that, because I don't know anything about marketing really. But I'll just go start talking to people. And, I was meeting with a young man who also had a small business. It was like a painting and contracting business. And he had this really kind of unique way that he did that here in the Austin, Texas area. And I was just asking him about what he was doing and helping kind of think through strategy. And at the end of our little meeting, he was like, oh my gosh, this whole point was for us to both get to know each other. And I didn't ask anything about you and what you do. And I just said, well, this is what I do. When I'm look to work with people, I ideally would love to work with other veterans because I know what it's like to, be a veteran and kind of feel maybe for the first time, like a fish out of water, and like, get that clarity and really go do what you're meant to do. And he just turned around and said, well, would you do that with somebody who's not a veteran? And then, there you go. My business was launched. Right.
So beautiful. I find that, for me, in my coaching, what I found is that your passion finds you, right? You start doing things that are natural and they come to you. And I told somebody even not too long ago that I coached people for free for years. I just didn't realize that that's what I was doing, right? You give away a part of yourself, and you're, really inputting who you are and your mission, your purpose into the people that are around you. And literally, I can just see, I love what you said about the guy. Look at you saying, well, would you consider doing this for somebody who's non-military?
Yeah.
You kind of
I said,
right into
sure. That. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he's like, how much or whatever. And he just said, okay, can you take a check? And I was like, okay, sure. Right.
Done.
Let's do this. Right. And so there we go. And it was more, and there was other, lumps along the way as you're learning to grow a business. But what I found was, and I think that you kind of hit this, is that, and Dale, you've probably had this experience where, now doing what you're doing now, you probably had previous experiences. You know what? Actually, that's what I really loved about that part of me. I didn't know that's what it was. When I was in the military as an officer, right? You've got, soldiers and non-commissioned officers like your sergeants, right? For those who are non-military, who are counting on you, and it's your job to counsel them and give them guidance and also help them to grow because they need to get promoted. And so you've got to give them opportunities, and you do what in the military they call it counseling, right? Or whatever, right? There's counseling statements or whatever these things are, but you're really coaching is really what you're doing. And then you're the person at the top of that makes decisions, but you're coaching everybody else and empowering everybody else to go be their best selves, right? To go be the, go do, be great, right? And you need to do that as part of a community that's moving in one direction. I know people in the military that outside of the military, we probably wouldn't get along at all, but we're able to move forward because we can have that dynamic where we're all moving towards a common goal. And that's what was missing for me in corporate, because I didn't share the goals of the companies, right? It was just about making money, which was not the thing that really resonated with me, especially when I didn't believe in the product. Well, not that I didn't believe in the product, I just didn't care about it, right? I was like, I don't care about this widget, right? Or whatever, right? So, it's just not for me. And so now this was a way that I could go take people who did want to go, like, just like the contractor business, right? That was his thing, right? And he's still doing it to this day. Like that was, years and years ago now when I met with him, and he's crushing it, right? And it's fun to see, like, I'm still connected to him. I still see he's doing great things. But that's where he's delivering his value. And, I get to live a little bit vicariously through him and his success, and see that he's doing awesome. Right. And, I know he looks back on our time together and the things that we worked on, and he's still using them to this day. Right. So
it's amazing. It's amazing. Justin. So what I love about, I just put up on the screen here 3 words that kind of describe, what you've just been talking about. And I'd like you to kind of peel that apart a little bit and talk to our users. So for those of you who are listening to this broadcast as opposed to seeing it, what I put up on the screen here is 3 specific mission-centric words that are a part of the Charge Forward mission. And it basically is dream, conquer, and become. And so, Justin, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that and what that means to you and why it's so important.
Well, I would say this is something that's relatively new to the way that I'm delivering this mission, right? Because I think that we all evolve. And so I want to give all of you the confidence that it's okay to evolve. It's okay to make changes and pivots as you go along the way. And this is one that we've been doing, but this is what I now am starting to really crystallize this. And it's much more part of the mission, because we're really more like, when I say charge forward, what I really mean is like, hey, it's like getting into action, right? And there's some tools that we can do, and we can get into action this way. These 3 words are going to be part of our mission and what we're delivering now, because they're very, very meaningful. Because I think, and you've kind of already alluded to this, but the idea of dreaming, right? Being able to dream fearlessly, that's something that I wasn't able to do. And I know many other people aren't allowing themselves to do, of having that big dream, right? Your dream shouldn't be to pay the bills on time. right? That's just not a big enough dream. That's not what
Yeah.
is going to get you up in the morning.
Yeah.
And I know people who have said that, listen, I just want to be able to pay for groceries, and that's commendable, right? If you're in that situation where that's a challenge, like I totally feel you, I've been there. But that's not enough. It's got to be, you got to be able to dream fearlessly. And there's lots of people in your life, by the way, who may not understand that. When I went in and decided to be in coaching, a lot of people looked at me sideways, right? When I left the military and got into sales positions, like if people knew me, like I'm very operational, you expect me to be in operations, right? The idea that I would do sales, like totally didn't fit their idea of who I was. And so, but at the end of the day, you've got to be able to dream for you. And I chose to make that decision. It's still, they may have been right about that at the time, although I love sales now. I needed a dream for me, and I needed to be able to dream fearlessly. And I needed to be comfortable with the idea that that might not be what some other people expect of me. But the truth is, this is the story that I'm on. This is the journey that I'm on, that I share. And again, however you believe this, I believe this is like, I'm on the mission that God set out for me. And I need to be able to allow myself to be fearless and trust that I'm doing what's the right thing for me. And it can evolve, right? You can learn new things. Well, you could ask me 15 years ago, I never would have thought that I would be a coach or a business consultant, right? But that's where I'm at now. And I need to have that dream where I can go and help. And I can tell you one of my dreams, Dale. Is it okay if I crystallize this for everybody else, right? And one of my dreams this year, we're starting, this is right at the beginning of 2024, right? And one of my dreams for Charge Forward is that we're going to help 10 businesses get to $1 million in revenue.
That's awesome. That's
right?
awesome.
We're going to help 10. Like maybe I'll do more. You know me, Dale. Like I'll do as many as that I can, go out here. But I think reasonably, my goal is to have 10. We have 10 people do $1 million in revenue, or 10 businesses, if you will, do $1 million in revenue. And that's for me, like, I don't know, 6 years ago, I was like, I just, one of them making half of that would have been great, but now I know that there's a way to do that. And I think the idea is sometimes we have this idea that we're just going to like, oh, I can just do a little bit more. If you're in corporate, like, oh, I want to make a 10% raise, right? Or a 5% raise. And those are good. Like those are still wins. But you might be tempted to just work harder to do that. And truthfully, if you dream big enough and it's real, then you have to absolutely do something different than what you've been doing. You can't use the same set of strategies. And the only way that we get there, and the only way that we progress as individuals and as families and as teams and as society, is if we dream bigger. And we have to be fearless in that dream. And that's why that's an important word here. Still on.
Trying to get you off get back to the screen here. So amazing. And so, in dreaming and then moving into the conquering. And I think, when we're talking about conquering, we're talking about conquering those obstacles in front of us that are hindering us or holding us back from being successful and really becoming victorious, right? That's kind of that.
It's not always going to be pretty. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to have things that are going to get in the way. You're going to have things that take away your attention. There's going to be noise out there to steal from you a little bit or co-opt from you. You're going to have to learn some things, right? When I hung my shingle for the first time in my own business, like I didn't know anything about marketing really, not traditional marketing sets, right? Like I was really good at like referral network marketing, but I didn't have to run any of the other stuff, right? I was just out there going and making sales on behalf of a business.
Doing the best you could. With what you had.
And it's fine. And so you had to learn this, right? And you're gonna, fall on your face, right? I've done webinars where nobody shows up, right? And having to learn those things, and it's easy to let those barriers stop you. A lot of people come up to resistance, and they go, oh, that didn't work, and they go right back on the path that they've always done, and they'll just stay in that world, right? We have this idea of the cart horse, right? The cart horse, it wants to stay on its little trail, right? And it's going to just stay on it, and if you want to veer off that and go do something that's really much more meaningful to you, well, you have a set of habits and things that have got you where you are now, and your subconscious is going to keep you there. And your subconscious is protecting you. This is the safe zone. And when you go do something new, if something gets in that way and you take your eye off that ball, the cart horse is going to want to move right back on the original course.
That's so good. That's so good, Justin. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, that mindset change. So what I'm hearing you say is that you really have to have intent. If you want to change, you have to really go forward with intention, right?
It has
Because
to be intention. And again, you have to go back to that kind of fearless mode. Again, the linchpin to all of this is really still the courage. You have to be comfortable with failure. You have to be comfortable with things not going well. You have to be comfortable with the fact that maybe it's not going to be exactly what you thought it was, but it's going to end up with exactly what it needs to be if you were doing the right things. So I told you my goal was I was going to coach military veterans who were in transition from active duty to the civilian sector or private sector, help them to learn what they really wanted to do and go crush it in their corporate careers, right? And I still, sometimes I get to consult in that way, and it's to do a little bit of coaching, and I absolutely still value that community. But now I work with online entrepreneurs and consultants and businesses, and I help them get to go and deliver their mission in unique ways. And so I've been comfortable letting my business and the way that I can help people evolve and overcoming the barriers that were set in front of me, right? I had to learn the idea of new offers. I had to learn on, how does the online world work? I had to learn on, we had COVID, right? COVID was a huge barrier. Now we had to learn new ways of doing business, right? We have to be comfortable with those barriers and understand that we're moving forward. But our ecosystems who are used to you in a certain way, and especially your internal ecosystem, will try to put you back on the same path. You have to actively say no to that and keep moving forward anyway. And that's where that courage comes in, but you have to conquer it. It can't be something that you just push through and then that's it. And you have this little bit of push and then everything's gonna be okay. You have to literally conquer it. It has to be gone. It has to be radically shifted. And that's why we say conquer your obstacles, conquer your barriers to that success.
That's so amazing. And one of my my mentor is saying right now in his words, and who that is, Joseph Aaron, he says so important. He says, do less, right? He's really talking about dialing it back and really focusing with intent on what matters most. And I think that we get so distracted. And I love what you were saying about being intentional and really applying that focus and really finding a system that works for you. And I think that that's what we're doing. I mean, when you talk about helping a business do $1 million, you've got to have a plan. You can't you've got to know what you're doing. But it's not as difficult as everyone out there that's listening to my voice right now. If I said to you that you could make literally 6 figures in one day, your brain would struggle to wrap itself around that statement, right? Because we've been trained to believe that it takes a lot of work. I mean, there's a teaching that I'm going to do at some point here over the next few weeks called, that's going to be centered around the 4 levels of value. And Justin, I think you know what those are. It's, and we talk about those levels of value, and it starts with implementation and unification, and then communication, and then imagination. And each level that you go, you have the ability to exponentially earn more money, make more money by simply utilizing your gifts and working less, working with more focus and intention, but really conquering those obstacles to get past those things that are holding you back in your mind to become victorious.
I think the idea here is there's really 2 different ways of thinking. If I can go back and I want to promise my military brothers and sisters here, I really mean this with utmost respect. But I bypassed being a soldier, right? I did not go to a traditional boot camp, right? I was not a private. I was not, a corporal at any time. I went straight to being an officer. You can do the same things in life, and there's a different way of mentality. And I think many people, there's this, soldiers look at things in front of them, right? They get their guidance and their instructions and they do things. And that's fantastic. It's an amazing thing to do. Officers are much higher up. They have different levels of information, and they make decisions from up here. And they go, what if I do things this way? I'm making a strategic decision that's going to win. And the soldier's job is to go and implement that and to actually go and do the operations. Now, there's different levels of officer and soldiers, but soldiers will sit there and look at the way an officer makes a decision and go, that's crazy. What is he thinking? Why are we doing this? This is stupid, right? Well, but they don't have the same information. They don't have the same view of an officer. And an officer has to understand that sometimes it's not going to be something that everybody's going to love, but it's what's right. And it's the decision that's actually going to get you where you want to go. And you have to be comfortable with that. And so oftentimes if you find yourself in this, and I was doing this, this is why I was stuck in dead end corporate jobs. Okay. I was thinking like a soldier. I was sitting there going, oh, I just got to go and do more of this. And, oh, this is dumb. Or I guess I'll just go get another job. Let me put my resume together.
Questioning everything.
Right. And it's fine. But it was, the truth is I had to allow myself to think more at a higher level, which is what like an officer does. That's what the general's doing. Going, no, we're going to do this because it's actually going to achieve this mission, which is important because of this, right? That's what we need to be thinking of. And so you got to ask yourself, like, are you thinking like you're on the line? Or are you thinking like you're a strategic genius? Well, when you're an officer, you're making decisions that actually affect change. You're actually going to do something that's actually going to lead to winning. So stop getting yourself in that tunnel vision like a soldier does. Again, there's something wrong with a soldier, by the way. Soldiers are awesome. Some of my favorite people, right? But they see the world this way, right? Whereas an officer, you see the whole battlefield.
Yeah.
Right? You have to allow yourself to see that.
I think it's a matter of perspective. And I know we have a lot of anecdotes and analogies and things that go in there. And I know there's a whole reference to what we call the turtle versus giraffe mindset, where somebody that's a turtle, they see things from a different perspective, and the giraffe is seeing it from a different perspective. And I think it's very important that we understand how we think and where we are thinking, right? What we're doing and those steps that we're taking for our own selves to grow and to really challenge that growth pattern. Would you say that it's more difficult to change that perspective, in this part of your journey, or are you finding it gets easier as you go forward?
I don't think that ever gets just easy to do. Maybe it's easier because you know that it can be done if you've ever done it before, but it's still something you have to learn, right? You talk about your mentor, Joe, who I've met, right? And I know he's mentioned going through different iterations of that. But I think at the end of the day, and I think this is a good segue to the idea of become, right? And you're never just going to say something and it is, right? I can't just say I'm an officer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to go through the ups and the downs. I had to go through the training. I had to go and learn what that meant, and then go and actually demonstrate it, and then put that bar on and step into the role. And at that point, I can become an officer, right? And you have to step into that. And so the best way I know to do this analogy, and I don't know where I kind of developed this, but the way I best know how to think about it is, can you think back to Dale, long time ago, when you were first learning how to swim? Do you know how to swim, Dale? Like did you get taught how to swim? Right.
I do.
I assume everybody knows, but maybe not everybody knows. Right.
I'm still healing from that traumatic experience. No, I'm just playing.
But if you imagine, right, if you were like me and I went to the local pool, right? My parents took me through swim lessons, right? And so you're at the edge of the pool, you're kicking and you're learning to do things, right? And then eventually at some point, they're going to tell you that you got to let go of the side of the pool and go swim. Right. But you don't really know if you can swim until you swim. Right. You have to go that's why the become is not first in this set. Right. They're all important. And I think it's ideally, maybe even the most important part of this is to become that next version of you and become the person that you are intent to be. But you have to go and do the things. You can't just say it. It can't just be a dream. You have to also act on it, which is where, again, that's why I get into like, you gotta charge into that. You have to just do it, and you're not going to be it until you're it.
It's beautiful.
You got to step to it. So if you want to, let's, for instance, lots of people who I connect with and who we connect with, Dale, right? They're trying to scale like an online business or a local business, and they want to be, a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur, right? Well, making like the money is not the thing. Right. You have to go break through those walls before you are that thing, before you are that leader. You have to go do it, but you have to allow yourself to become it. And you have to set that into an intention of your new identity. And the best way to do that, like if you want to go be a swimmer, you got to go swim. You got to actually do it. And at that point, then you can become it. Now you can change the entire outlook of how people see you, right? If you're in there, you want to start a business, or you're in the middle of trying to do this thing and people are looking at you funny, or they're saying that you're dumb, or if you're, or maybe people have called you a scam, right? Or whatever. I have no idea, right? But they don't know, they can't see what you see. I can tell you this, that's going to go away when you demonstrate it, when you show them that you're that and you step into it and become the person you told everybody you are.
I mean, how many people that are listening to this broadcast right now, you've lived under the thumb of your family, your friends, you've been defined by your life to this point. You've really fallen into that. I say a lot of times, if you can be distracted, you can be discouraged. If you can be discouraged, you can be destroyed. And how many of you are just you're in that discouraged mode, and you just feel like it's time to rise up. It's time to really define your life and overcome. And that's what you're talking about, Justin, is really, making those steps necessary, digging deep within ourselves to say, I am ready to make a change. I decide. You'll know about this because we were talking about this, and about the word incision and decision. I had never thought about it this way, but the word incisor means to cut into, but decise or deciding, decision. I'll let you kind of explain that, Justin. Tell us a little bit about that, what that difference is. Because
the root word of decision or incision, right, is scission, right, which actually just means to cut, right? Yeah. And so if you think about the idea of decision, right, or making a decision, it actually means to cut off all other options, right?
Wow.
Think of it in terms of, and you've probably heard these analogies, right? It's burn the boats, right?
Yep.
Like, you're not making other decisions. So if you find yourself struggling to make decisions, start eliminating options. It's much easier to do, right? I always hey, have you ever tried to pick a movie to watch on Netflix? Right? Because there's like a million things there.
And 45 minutes later, you're falling asleep because
especially if you didn't know for sure what you wanted to watch before you started that endeavor. Right. You spend an hour doing it, and eventually you get tired and cut it off, and you just wasted an hour. Right. And so because, this could be good or that could be good, I'll come back to that. And then you just don't ever make a decision. Well, you should start eliminating options. It's much easier. Right. So, hey, I'm not going to watch a horror film. I'm not going to watch a TV show. Right. And so now you can whittle that down a lot easier, and you're just eliminating all the other options and going in one direction. That's what this is about.
Some have said that the quickest way to success is decision, right? To decide. That's the first step that you need to make. Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree with the statement. You do have to make the decision. You still have to act on it, but the decision has to come first. I would say this: the more key takeaway from this discussion, Dale, is the worst decision that you can make is indecision.
That's so good. Say that again. I think everybody can hear that.
The worst, I don't care what, Dale, love you, buddy. Right. And for those of you listening, I love you too. I don't care what decision you make. Just make a damn decision. Right. The worst decision is indecision.
Exactly.
Right. Now, listen, will you make a mistake at some point in your life? Right. Nobody's perfect. Sure. Some things may not work out. Like I told you what my business was going to be at one point. Right. But if you make a decision to move forward, you're going to learn what's right and wrong, and you will get to where you're supposed to go. Right. I never in a million years thought I was going to be doing live virtual events, helping people, scale their business to 6 and 7 figures. But here I am because I made the decision and I went all in, and there were bumps along the way, just as everybody has. Right. I was not an overnight success. I wish I was. Right. But here we are. Right. And that you can absolutely do this. So if you can allow yourself to dream fearlessly and make the decision on that dream, be comfortable and willing with intent to conquer all those barriers, you can become what you're meant to be.
That's so powerful to hear and to think about. And where do you see, Justin, tell us, where do you see your industry, your work, your effort? Where do you see that, heading? And what do you tell us about what you're doing right now? And if somebody is out there listening, speak to the listeners here. If they're kind of in that indecision and they're struggling to make decisions, how would you guide them, or what could you offer that would help them get to that next step or get pointed in the right direction?
Well, I would tell you this, if you're listening to me and you're interested in more of what I do, right? I typically work with, online entrepreneurs. It doesn't have to be, you can be a local business. You can You could even be right now working in corporate somewhere and you'd like to be in business. But I will share this. There's really three things that lead to success, and they're necessary for success in whatever it is you want to do. For me, it's I like to work with businesses and entrepreneurs who are helping other people get what they want. Whether you're a life coach, whether you're a service provider, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, doesn't matter to me, right? I like to help people be able to do more of what they're meant to do. And in my space, that typically looks like coaching and consulting or agency type things. But it doesn't matter for you. There's three things that you're going to need. The number one thing you need to have is clarity. You need to really understand and know what it is that you want. And in the military speak, I might say you need to know what your real mission is. You need to know what that is. You need to know why it's important. It's not enough to just have a mission, but why is that mission important, right? Who are you going to be in that process? What's going to be the end result? Why is it important? What's going to keep you moving forward? And that's clarity. You have to have that. We can't do anything without clarity. Can you imagine not like having any idea what to do, Dale? Has that ever happened to you? Right? If you don't know, like, how am I supposed to hit the goal if I don't know anything about it? Right?
I have been there before. I know that people listening to this show have been there before. And when you are sitting there, it is painful. When you just don't know what to do, I'd rather stumble forward than to fall back. And
I want to share with that. And listen, I have frameworks for everything, but my methods, right, is I help people doing online live virtual events for their businesses. Right. And that's my particular method because it's a lot of fun and I could dive into all the different things about it. But the truth is it can actually be very simple. You don't have to have an existing ecosystem. You don't have to have all of these things. Like, you can literally just get your message to your people online through a live virtual event. That's my method. We can talk about the little details about that if you want, Dale. But that, again, even so, it still starts with clarity. Right? When I talk with somebody, I consult with somebody on it. We've got to get really clear about who that's for, what you're offering, how can you deliver that? What's the promise to that? Why should people pay attention to it? Why will people want to show up? Like, we have to know those things. If we don't know those things, it's going to be a terrible experience, right? So it always starts with clarity, right? And what are you going to do with it? What happens when you suddenly have 50 new customers in your business? Can you deliver that? Like, what are you going to do? What's that going to do for you? What are you going to then reinvest that revenue in? And what's that going to allow you to do? Right? We need to know those answers, because if we don't, it's the wrong reason to be doing it. And so we've got to get the clarity there. It's number one, clarity. I can't stress that enough. And number two is the fun part. This is the part that most people really want to know, right? But it's systems. Right?
System. Tell us about that.
Let me set the stage. Let me go this way. Here's my visual for you and for those of you listening. Right. I was in Arizona for an event years ago. I was, it was like professional development, learning new skills and stuff, right? Because we all want to work on sharpen the tools, right? But I was, they broke for lunch, and we had a little small group of people, and we decided to walk into downtown Scottsdale, Arizona, where we were, and we were eating at this outdoor diner. And I didn't know it, but one of the people in the group had a background as an architect. And across the street from us was a plot where they were excavating because they were going to put in a new high-rise building. And the architect told us that he was like, oh, I don't know if you know this, but I can tell you how tall that building is going to be based on the depth of how they dig the foundation. Which was for me, it was like, oh my gosh. Okay, wow. So you have to have a deeper foundation if you want to go to greater heights. And again, that's where the clarity comes in, right? You have to have a deep foundation, but it's also got to be solid. It can't just be deep. It's got to also be solid, because listen, I don't care what they do with that building. I don't care what kind of materials they use. I don't care if they have the best architect in the world. If that foundation isn't built for it, they're going to condemn the building or it's going to come down.
Yeah.
It must be there, and it has to be deep enough to support the height of that building. So imagine the success, the height of success you're going to get to is dependent on the depth of your foundation.
Well, and that just reminds me, years ago, I had I call it a vision, if you will, or a dream. Whether I can't remember really the specifics around it, but in this dream, I was standing at next to a building, a huge building, and it was like a building with a very wide foundation, very strong. It had big, huge hardware nuts, like you would have a nut and bolt, but it had this huge nut, these iron, I don't know, man, going into the ground. And it was just this huge base. And when I looked up, the building kind of went at an angle, curved up, got very narrow. And it was the tallest building I had ever seen. And I felt like at that moment when I was looking at that building, I was looking up and I was in so much awe and I was overtaken by that. I felt like God had spoken to me. And he was really just saying, listen, the taller the building, the more beautiful and majestic the building, the wider and deeper the foundation. And so it was so important that what God was saying to me is he said, focus on the foundation. Make sure you've got the foundation in place to build the big, beautiful building.
Right. Listen, you and I both know this. The biggest investment you can make is the investment in yourself. Right. So that's why you and I love coaching. A lot of people are like, I don't know what coaching is. I don't know. Maybe it's this thing that only rich people get to do. No, I don't think I think it's something that you can't afford not to do. I've spent over 6 figures just on my development, right? I've probably spent more than I spent on what the government spent on college for me. Right. So, and so I definitely believe in that. And so, definitely, invest in your foundation. It's the number one.
Well, give us number 3.
Well, so I was going to say about systems, right? So now that you've got a foundation, right? Well, there's a particular framework and discipline that you have to use to actually build that structure, right? And you have to have systems and routines and habits and disciplines that actually go into that process, right? And if you don't have a consistency, this is why the military is such a great analogy. Everything is structured, right? You could say structure instead of systems. It's really systems, right? But you have to have that. Otherwise, you're not going to be... I can tell you this, here's a dirty little secret about being in the military. There's almost zero guesswork. You don't really guess at anything because there's a field manual, there's a regulation, there's an answer to everything you could possibly need to know in the military. There's very, 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 very little reinvention of the wheel. You don't have to guess at it because it's so highly structured and so highly systematized. You can be successful. You just got to show up and do what you're supposed to do.
And trust the system.
You have to trust the system, but the system has to be sound, right? And you have to follow the right guidance, right? We can follow wrong guidance, right? And that happens sometimes, right? I've been there too. But if you have the right systems in play and you are actually ready to follow them, then you can be successful. You can go as high as that building needs to go. Absolutely. Number 3, and here's the key part. It's guidance. I guarantee you will be successful at anything. You have clarity, you have the right systems in place, and you have guidance. Again, this is another reason I like to analogize to the military. I don't care what rank you are. You're going to have 3 or 4 leaders near you that are just above. They've been where you are, that have seen those landmines, they've seen those obstacles, and know how to overcome them. And even if they haven't, their job is to help make you successful. And you can go to them and you can get the right guidance. Now, outside of the military, that might look like a mentor. That might look like a coach. It might look like a consultant or a partner, right? It might look like your spouse. Okay, but it's got to come from somewhere, because if you're trying to hold things so close where you're doing this on your own, you're going to step on more, moles, hills, or you're going to hit a landmine. You're going to do something wrong and it's going to trip you up, and you're going to be that cart horse that reverts. But if you have the right guidance and you allow yourself to be guided, you can get there much faster. Much, much faster.
Right? You know what I love about what you're talking about? Your dream, conquer, become is much like my silence, distraction, amplify success, and multiply your message. It's really the same thing. You can dream fearless, meaning silence your distraction, dream fearless. What do you want to do? Where do you want to be? What do you want to become? Right. And then you want to conquer those things that are around you. That's the amplifying your success, meaning tuning out those distractions and really get things in place, and those systems that are in place that are successful, going to make you successful. And I like what you said. It has to be a solid system. It can't just be something you're trying to throw up there. It's finding a system that works, that's simple, that is proven. And then finally you end up becoming victorious, right? And multiplying the message and being able to be successful. And I find that in that you can accomplish so many great things. And I love how you bring the military into that. I was sitting there visualizing as you were talking these field manuals. I'm pretty sure it's a bit of a dry read, but there's nothing that's reinvented. They might improve it, but they have a system that is thought through, that is tried and true and tested. It has been tried until it breaks, and then they fix it, and then they do it, and they do it, and they do it until it's a perfect system.
I'm telling you this right now, and other people who are military already know the answer to this, but like there's a regulation for how your uniform is supposed to look. And like, no lie, for your dress uniform, like you're expected to get a ruler, and like your pins are supposed to be a certain distance from the edge, right? Or it's out of regulation.
Really? So you're not just putting a pin on your breast here.
You're just not just putting it on the corner, right? Like it literally has to be a certain distance, right?
Oh,
that's how little guesswork there is, right? And can you imagine if you did that with your business or your life or your health, right? If you just would you follow the guidelines?
Yeah.
Would you let somebody who's not you, who doesn't sit in that tunnel vision, understand what you're trying to go for? And that's what we're building with Charge Forward. That's why I didn't want to get into the minutia of like how to do an online event. If you want to know more about that, we can share that. But honestly, that's what we do. And we're going to provide these things. We're going to help you to get the clarity. We're going to help you to use the right systems, and we're going to provide guidance along the way. And we're going to make sure that it's successful, because listen, I love coaching. You know that about me, Dale, right? I love to coach. I love it. I geek out over it. I think it's awesome. This is not a coaching service necessarily that we're doing, although coaching kind of ends up in there. This is something that we do with you. I want to be successful with you, and I want you to know that my results are tied into your results, right? And so that's the way that we do that. So you're going to get those three things that are going to allow you to be successful, because we've done it, we've been there. But most importantly, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to help you to dream fearlessly. I'm going to help you conquer those barriers along the way, and I want you to become victorious with your mission. That's what my mission is.
So good. For those of you that want to get in touch with Justin, I put his email address up on the screen, justin@thechargeforward.com. Again, justin@thechargeforward.com. And I get so excited because, these virtual events that Justin's talking about, I work with him in this space, and we do some amazing stuff. And I want to tell you, this is so exciting. COVID actually changed the landscape of how you can do business, and everything has just pivoted, turned on its head. And Justin is just helping people having ridiculous success. So, again, if you want help, you want some guidance, you want to tap into the systems that Justin is talking about, because it is so important. And I want to encourage you again, why reinvent the wheel? If you're sitting there, you've been struggling, you feel like you're on a slippery slope, or you just feel like you're never getting traction, the first thing you need to do is decide, as Justin was talking about, decide to turn and focus in a different direction. And number two, then you need to take a step. You need to take an action. And that action needs to be in the direction of something that's simple and successful. And Justin has that in place. Systems that are simple and successful, proven, and gosh, I don't even know how to say it. It gets so exciting. You can be successful. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I would say, listen, Dale and I, what Dale's talking about, I know that he's done this, I've done this. Like, we're not just saying this, like, this is something we've actively done, and we've made those investments too. And, we've spent a lot of money doing it, and we're bringing our messages to you. Dale does it his way, I'm doing mine. Sometimes we do this as a partnership. And we've collaborated, certainly, but we're not telling you to do something that we weren't willing to do. And we know, that's why we know this works, and we'd love to listen. If I can help you in any way, absolutely, you can email me. I can do fancy things too, Dale. All right. I put my website up on the screen here. Right. Thechargeforward.com. If you're not necessarily ready to, like, email's great, but we all get tons of emails. If you really want to learn more of what it's about, you can go over to that. I got a little short video for you. And if it makes sense for you, you can even book time on mine or my team's calendar, and we can have a discussion about how we can help you do a 6 or 7 figure day in your business and help you to do more of what you're meant to do. And you don't have to wait 5 years to do that. You can literally do it. Dale, can I share like one crazy?
Please.
I don't want to say it's like, listen, I'm not, a lot of people get like, oh, yeah, sure, you could do $10 million. That sounds like this. Like you talk about people who won't believe in these certain things. Listen, it doesn't have to be that. Imagine what it would be for you if we had a discussion, because this really happened, okay, where we met and we had a short little session about what could be possible. And within 10 days, I helped you run a live virtual event that brought $60,000 to your business.
Amazing.
How many ads have you seen out there? People are just trying to make $10,000 a month, right? And I'm talking about, he did this within 10 days of us connecting. We ran an event and he did $60,000 in his business. Right. Okay. So that may sound like a big number, but it's also not millions of dollars. But were we happy about that? Absolutely. Right.
Listen,
100%.
Let me just remind the audience that is in one day. That is not $60,000 in a month. That is not $60,000 in a year. That is in one day, one event. And it is a proven system. And so we're not talking about something that is, just we're like, it's what we talked about, a solid system, a foundation that will take you and carry you as a vehicle to be successful. So
yeah, and I'm not talking too that there's, I don't mean to cut you off, Dale, but we're also not talking about something that's like, oh, one day in the future I can do these things. We're talking about like in the near future, if you choose to do these kinds of things, you can radically change your business and scale it. You can even launch it this way. You don't even have to have a following, which is the fun part, right? Like you can totally launch your business this way, or you can take an existing business and scale it. But bar none, I believe the number one way to get what you want if you're trying to grow a business is to do online virtual events. And if that's something that you'd like to learn more about or have us help you do, hit me up in the emails or go to thechargeforward.com and we can talk more about it.
Yeah, I'm going to take a moment. We're going to share that video with you. Stay with us right now, and we'll be right back after this.
You want to rapidly scale your business, 6 figures, 7 figures in one day using online virtual events. Virtual events are basically the number one monetization strategy on the market right now. So a lot of people get really worried about running a virtual event because they're not sure, like, what's the tech that I have to use? How do I structure the event? I might have to talk for a long time. What's the content look like? How can I hold people's attention? How can I make sure that I'm fulfilling on the back end? The truth is right now, it's never been easier. We get a bunch of people in the room who are excited about what you do. You can share with them your methodologies. You can teach them how you can help them, and then make an offer on the back end. How we can use the blessing of technology that we have to create a virtual experience, health and wellness, relationships, business, personal growth, B2C, B2B, doesn't really matter. But we're going to really dive deep into also what it is that you do. Like, how do you help people? What's your methodologies? What's your success rate? Have you had any clients? Do you have any case studies? How can we make sure that we deliver the most successful possible event for you? And talk about what the best marketing strategies are for your business. It's much easier to create cash infusions when we do high ticket. If you're doing lower ticket, that's totally okay. We will help you craft the offer. And we're also going to create the tech. Like, we're going to figure out what's the name of the event. When does it need to be? What's the domain? What's the promise of the event? How's the content going to be structured? What are we going to deliver? And we're going to build all the tech and run that for you. And what you'll find is that if we've done our job right, 20% of the room will accept your offer on the back end. So again, using our $10,000 example, if we get 50 people in the room, that's 10 people who will buy your high ticket offer, 6-figure day. If there's 100 people in the room with a $20,000 offer, that's $400,000 in revenue. And you can do the further math, and we can even get our closing rate much higher as we test it and make sure that we get everything dialed in. If you don't want to create $1 million business in just one event a month, you can absolutely do that. You know that we're going to show up for you and help make these events awesome.
So we're back. Hey, is that awesome or what?
Well, I just want to say, and I did that very intentionally. It's not meant to be something where, like, I know we're sitting on this podcast and we've been going for a little bit. Like, my goal is not for people to be watching videos for a long time. So that's why I wanted to get straight to the point. You know this about me, Dale. I'm straight line and like whatever, straight to the thing. That's what I want to do.
What I love about you, Justin.
But here's the fun part, and everything I said in there is 100% true. I've seen it, right? I've learned from the best, and I'm bringing this to the world in my unique methods and the way that I do it. But it's on solid foundation. and you can absolutely do it too. I'm not lying to you, like what we said in the training. It has never been easier to do business, and it's never been easier to get your ideal customers into a room and show them what you can do for them and have them do the virtual table rush to come in and sign up for your services or your products. So if you know you want to do a 6-figure day or a 7-figure day, and we can help you do that, again, head over to thechargeforward.com, get on our calendar, or shoot me an email.
So Justin, so grateful for your time today. Really amazing. I think your story is amazing. And I think what you're doing to help people is just equally amazing. So guys, if you are interested in more information, Justin's already said it a few times, thechargeforward.com. You can also email him at justin@thechargeforward.com. And you can check out his video and his information. We want to help you be more successful. This is the place to do it. Silence distraction, amplify success, and multiply your message. Or in Justin's words,
dream fearlessly, conquer barriers, and become victorious.
Become victorious. Thank you, Justin. Have a wonderful day, man. Thanks for joining us today.
Salutes to you, Dale. Thanks for having me.
You've just experienced a powerful journey to unleashing your full potential. If you're an entrepreneur or just seeking freedom to do more and go further, remember, it's not just about tuning out the noise. It's about cranking up your success and amplifying your impact on the world. As we wrap up, I want to express my gratitude for being a part of this amazing movement. Your support fuels our mission to spread encouragement, crush limitations, and multiply the message of hope and inspiration. Now, here's your call to action. If today's episode resonated with you, don't keep this energy to yourself. Spread the love, share this podcast with your tribe, and let's grow our No More Noise Warrior community. You can connect with us on Facebook at No More Noise Mission. Remember, this is a brand new mission, and we need your help growing our audience, expanding our influence, and building our community. So hit that like button, share it far and wide, and hit subscribe to keep that energy flowing in your life. Our mission: silence distraction, amplify success, and multiply the message. Together, we're rewriting narratives and smashing barriers in life and business. Stay pumped, stay motivated, and until next time, keep turning down the noise, turning up your success, and multiplying your unique message. You are the heartbeat of this movement. See you on the next episode of No More Noise.